Guys, Hippopotamus here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a slightly different build. This is a PvE build, and it's what I call a true hybrid. It does a little bit of everything. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the build. First off, we'll start with the specialization, and the main things out of this table to know is the EMP grenade. That's quite helpful with the dogs and other proxies and skill drones, things like that. The main reason we're taking it is because of the skill tier. Basically, that's going to give us an extra skill tier, which is helpful, which we need. The dismantling is quite a useful talent. It's going to help quite a lot with the extra skill damage to drones and proxies and robotics. So 12% damage is 12% damage. That's fine. Using an armor kit also applies to friendly skill proxies with emergency patch. That can be helpful, but you're not going to see a lot of mileage from that. We also do make use of overclock CPU. This is important because we don't have a lot of skill damage rolls from the gear, so having a little bit of skill damage extra wherever we can gram it is really, really important. We also have Techromancy, which is just going to give you 15% bonus armor while aiming a skill. Yes, that can be quite useful, because when you're throwing your turret out, you can be quite vulnerable. You don't have a weapon in your hand, and you kind of just stood there idly, trying to aim your turret onto whatever you're throwing it onto. So that's quite useful. The main other thing is just the synergizing weapons, which is the assault rifle, the rifle and the LMG. Nearly. Okay, let's go down to the range. We'll have a look at the build, go through the stat sheet, all that other good stuff. So, first thing you're going to see is probably look at this and say, well, that looks like a mess. And it does look like a mess when you first see it, to be fair. But, however, I'm going to show you the reasons why and justify all my choices here, and hopefully you can understand it works the way that it works. Starting off with the weapons, the Urban MDR. I'm using the Urban MDR just because of its fire rate. It's got high DPS. It's using all crit chance mods, just in case. We don't normally go through the mods, but we are using crit chance mods, so that's an important note to have there. It comes with rifle damage, critical hit damage, and damage to targets out of cover. And it's got the talent Future Perfect. Now this ties in with us gaining passive skill tiers, because what this does is, it gives us weapon kills gain 1%, one extra skill tier for 15 seconds, up to 3 times. So we will be able to gain up to 3 ranks. Weapon kills at tier 6, which we will be able to get with this build, will grant overcharge for 15 seconds, and the cooldown for all of that is 90 seconds. Okay, so that's going to be very, very instrumental in us grabbing extra skill tier ranks. Obviously, the harder the difficulty, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to gain, but it's still very much possible with the damage that you're putting out. Okay. So, for our second weapon, I'm using the Bullet King. Now, just a quick mention, some people might not want to use this weapon, but because we are stacking crit chance, crit damage to do damage, I like this weapon for dealing with heavy enemies like chungers, dogs. It just allows you to put a constant stream of damage on an enemy. However, if you wish to use an assault rifle and use the capacitor, that would be also an excellent choice, because it would help give you skill damage where you don't have it. You could also use things like the blue screen, anything really that you quite like. I just like the Bullet King because of the crit chance, crit damage, and what we're doing. This just gives us a gun where we never have to reload. We can just keep tipping damage out, and between the drone and the turret and this gun shooting at something, it burns things quick. So just to mention on that, it has the talent Bullet Hell. So this weapon never needs to be reloaded. For every 100 bullets that hit an enemy, it replenishes some of your ammo to you and your allies' reserves. So great. So it's going to help with your allies' ammo and your ammo count. But yeah, I just forgot to mention the Bullet Hell talent on there. But I take it as a given that most people sort of know what this does. Right, with that said, let's move on to the pistol. The TDI card custom. Why? Well, it should be fairly obvious because it gives us a skill tier. It comes with pistol damage and that skill tier as I just mentioned. It also has the talent In Sync. Now, I think this is quite important. In Sync, it gives us 15% skill damage for 5 seconds when we hit an enemy with the gun. And then it also gives us 15% weapon damage when we hit an enemy with the skill. When both are active, it's going to double up, and so it's going to give you 30 skill damage and 30 weapon damage. Pistol, it has unlimited ammo, you're never going to run out, so it's a reliable backup, and it's also going to bring your skills up to the next tier level, which is great. So in an emergency, don't have any ammo, or pistolero, whatever, this is going to help massively. Okay, so onto the build. So the first thing that I'm using is the Memento backpack. I'm just missing a mod in there, so just bear with me. Let's just put that in now. as we go. What have we got? So I'm just going to put my crit damage mod in there. So yeah, this comes with weapon damage, armor, and a skill tier. It's got 25 expertise ranks. That's because this has a PvP build, so you can ignore that for the most part unless you want to spend those. It doesn't need that for it to work. It's just a nicety that I have those ranks, and just going to give me a tiny little bit more armor on this piece. So the main thing to note with this is kill confirmed. Enemies you kill drop a trophy on death. Collecting the trophies provide both a short and long-term buff, the first of which scales with the number of cores and attributes you have equipped, the last 10 seconds. So when we pick up a tag, it's going to give us 2 red cores, so that's 10 damage. We've got 4 blue cores, so that's 40% armor, and then 2 red cores, which is 10% skill efficiency. We also have passive skill tiers. I don't know whether that will still count through that. The passive skill tiers, if they count towards this bonus, I'm not 100% sure. If they do, then it's actually like having 3. But we'll go through that in a moment, as we've discussed. For every trophy collected, you gain an additional 1% weapon damage, 1% skill efficiency, and 0.1 armor regeneration for 300 seconds. Max stacks is 30. So effectively what this is going to do is it's going to give us extra damage. It's also going to give us skill efficiency, which is great for our skills. But all importantly is it's going to give us armor regen. 3% armor regen when we collect all those 30 tags, which you'll see will tie in with the next piece that we have. So we know if we get all those tags, we have 3% armor regen. We have a Bellstone piece. This is going to bring us up to 4% armor regen when we're fully charged. And this is rolled with 170,000 armor, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, and then a crit hit damage mod. I've actually put this one in this time. And what this is going to do is just give us that bit more regen. Plus, if you don't have any tags, it's going to just give you a tiny, tiny little bit of regen. So if you run away, you've got no medkits, it's going to allow you to recuperate some health, albeit at a very slow pace, but, you know, could save your life if you have no medkits. Okay, so on to the next piece. I'm using a piece of Grupo Sombra, and in this case it's a named piece, the Door Kicker's Knock. So what this does is it gives us 13% critical hit damage, which is what we're looking for. We have weapon damage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage mod, 12%. We also have Perfect Spark, and now this ties in really, really well with the build, and I feel like it's basically where we're going to get an extra damage core from. So damaging an enemy with a skill increases total weapon damage by 18% for 20 seconds. This is pretty much always up with the turret and drone, so you can pretty much say that we've got an extra damage core, because 15% weapon damage is a damage core, that's what it equates to. So that's going to give us another damage core, giving us a little bit more damage, which is great. So obviously we are going to use the next 2 pieces. These are joined together, I guess, in a way, because we're using 2 pieces of Brazos. So the first piece is the Picaro's holster, the named holster. This comes with a skill tier, which I've rolled on. I also have skill damage, which is the few skill damage rolls that we have other than from the specialization, and it also has 10% weapon damage. So if you think about the 15 from that 18 that we had before, and then that's going to leave us with 3%, so you can pretty much call it 4 red cores, basically. We're looking at like 13% weapon damage from the leftover of the Door Kicker's Knock, so it's effectively like having 4 weapon damage tiers, which is great, which is really good passively. Okay, we've got some skill damage on there as well, just to help the skills out a little bit. And then let's look at the glove. The glove is rolled with an armor core and crit chance, crit damage. What this is going to do is, because we have 2 pieces of the Brazos now that tie together, it's going to give us skill haste and a skill tier. The skill haste is great, that's something that we need for our skills, and the skill tier is also going to bump us up 1 extra. So between the specialization and the Brazos pieces, we're actually sat at skill tier 4. So you can see now we're actually looking at a 4 red, 4 blue, 4 yellow through passive gains. Okay. I also have the Fox's Prayer. Again, this is just for the out of cover damage and the crit chance, but we are using a rifle. Okay, so it's all going to tie in nicely. That's all sort of fits the bill. We're gaining extra damage to our rifle, which is the way that we go into overcharge and gain extra tiers. So with all that said, we've got our skills now. So we've got the drone, which we use. which is a tier 4 when we're holding the rifle. If we switch to the pistol, then we have a tier 5 skill. I'll show that in just a sec. Again, same with the turret. You know, it's not hitting for massive damage, but once we stack up all our damage sources together, this is going to be hitting for fairly reasonable damage. And it also allows us to do multiple things. We also have an EMP grenade, which is quite nice. So let's go look at the stat sheet and go through some of the build caveats and things like that we might have to consider. What I might do is as well, we always forget to do this, sorry. I'll just turn that off. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to, haven't even set the range on this character. Let's make sure we do that. Okay, and what I'm thinking of doing is just turning this off so we don't get inaccurate numbers. Okay, now we can benchmark things properly and see what it's going to hit for without any of the modifiers. So let's look at the stat sheet. Okay, so we're using the talents Future Perfect, Bullet Hell, In Sync. Weapon damages are as follows, so I'll just quickly scroll through these. Okay, so nearly 50 crit hit chance with 130 crit hit damage is quite nice with that LMG. Okay, our weapons damage numbers are as follows, but don't forget that we get some passively. Our gear talents are kill confirmed and perfect spark. We have a piece of bellstone, the backpack memento, a Grupo Sombra, 2 pieces of Brazos, and the Overlord, which is the Fox's Prayer. Now, a big part of the defense, what this build does, is it has 1,500,000 armor. Sorry, a bit tongue twisted today making this video. There is a lot to go through and I do apologise. Okay, so that's going to make it so we're not quite as squishy as just your average skill build, which is really great. It helps a lot. Not only that, we're going to get some value from the regen. Right now, we're sat at 15,000. That's nothing. But when we do pick up those tags and we get to 30 stacks, this is going to be more like 4%. So 4%, you're looking really about, I would say about 70,000 regen, which, you know, it's not bad. 70,000 regen is not to be sniffed at, especially when you're only at 1.5 million armor. You're going to feel your armor bar fill back up. As long as you don't play too aggressively and just sort of sit back and, you know, play the way that you would normally, you're going to feel the benefit of having that little bit of extra armor. You're not just going to get one-shotted or just knocked down dead easy. It's going to make things a little bit easier for you to move around and position and maneuver and put your skills down in much better places than what you'd normally be able to reach. Okay, so obviously bear in mind I do have some watch level points, so if your watch isn't level 1000, you might be seeing some different numbers, so that's something just to also consider. Okay, so one thing to remember is obviously we've got the skill haste here. Let's just, I think we took that off, didn't we? So let's just take that off. We want to see that without, don't we? So let's just, apologies about that. I think this is probably one of the messiest videos I've created recently, so let's go over to our stat sheet. Okay, so we have 20% skill haste, again low skill haste, but we're not waiting forever for the drone to come back, 20 seconds. The damage is quite low, 42,000. It's not hitting super hard. We can change this damage though as time goes on. Once we get more tags and we go up in skill tiers, we're going to do more damage. We also don't do massive damage with the turret, but again, the damage is still something. We can get this higher as we go up. I'm going to show all this as we sort of go through the build. Right, now on to the all-important piece, is to show you the main pieces of the build. So, as we said, we don't have a lot of damage. One thing we can do is, when we put our turret out, we can switch to our pistol. You can see that it changed to 5. And what we can do is use In Sync. Now all of a sudden that turret's hitting for 91. We'll just pick that up. And what we'll do is, we'll pop the drone out again. Okay, we'll hit a target down here. See 42, switch to the pistol, now we're tier 5, 46, 57. Okay, so for the pistol, that is one way of getting things to be a little bit more damage. What we can do is, though, we have this weapon, which is the MDR, and we can see that's going to give us an extra skill tier. Kill another enemy. Now we're at 6. We're hitting for 81. Hit another one. Now we're hitting for 100,000. Okay? And with the damage that you do have, which I'll just show now dead quickly. Let's go over here. Let's have a look at the weapon damages, okay? So it's fairly easy to get the kills because you do have some extra damage. So again, you can see down just under my ammo count, you can see spark there. So what I can do is just set that off, refresh that. 890,000 on a crit to the head, 600,000 to the body, 393,000 on a crit to the chest, 438 on the head. We could probably get that a little bit higher with armor. So what we need to do is just let that hit something. 339, 464. Okay, so we're still hitting reasonably hard, even though we have those blue cores and we have some yellow. We're still hitting reasonably hard. So you can see that we can get our skills up to tier 6 and beyond as well. Now to put it all together. So as you can see, that's how we're going to use this build. We're just basically going to go through the process of bringing our skill tiers up, and as soon as we get to overcharge, we just switch to the Bullet King and just keep tipping damage on enemies, and it's just an ongoing process like that. If you've run out of ammo, again remember you have the pistol, and the only other thing to remember is just that you have your EMP grenades. Again, once you pick up the tags, you'll also have that little bit of armor regen. As you can see, even at 15,000, if you just sit still and wait, it's still something that's going to allow you to survive if you do take a little bit of damage and you've got no medkits. Obviously, once you get all the tags, you're going to be looking at least triple that. Okay? Alright, I hope that's enjoyable. I'm really sorry about this one being a little bit messy. It's been a little bit more things to think about because the build does have a lot of working parts to it. But if you do go on to enjoy this and try it, please let me know in the comments. Thank you, and see you in the next one.